Hi guys, it's Greg here. I'm sitting here at the desk because it's time for the opinion corner, and boy do I have some opinions on the brand new series that was just released by Shane Dawson that as of recording this finished up today, and as of uploading this finished up yesterday, The Mind of Jake Paul. Now to kind of get some housekeeping things out of the way, I'm not a huge fan of Jake Paul. I don't like this motherfucker at all. That being said, I was kind of morbidly curious about the whole Shane Dawson is going to be doing a series about this guy. For the longest time, I wasn't really much of a Shane Dawson fan. Then as he kind of turned his content around, kind of realized that he had a fucked up past, stuff like that. It's like that he's said some really bad shit that still continually gets him in trouble. It's like, and he started doing the content he's been doing now. I've been kind of more and more open to, okay, no, I can be a fan of his and stuff like that. So I kind of, the whole thing, I had a morbid curiosity. And as the series played out, I initially had some concerns about the way that some of the editing and framing was, because there was some weird shit that was going on. Everyone remembers episode 2. Everyone remembers the BetterHelp ad before talking about being a sociopath and all that other crazy shit and all the dramatic music and stuff. And I personally thought in episode 1, I'm like, man, am I going to be forced to care about Jake Paul? Because first couple episodes, I wasn't feeling for him at all. And there are some things that I do kind of feel sorry for about his situation, but after the series kind of ended, I'm kind of left with my opinions on him still hasn't changed as far as, do I like him as a person? I'm not that big a fan of him. But do I feel like he has the potential to grow? Maybe. So throughout the whole series, Jake Paul is kind of the one sitting there saying, I just want to get my story out there. I just want to have the truth. And having someone like, Shane Dawson, who he had a fucked up past, he had his fair share of controversies, but he's kind of been able to bounce back and arguably have one of the bigger comebacks on the internet, comparable to people like Philip DeFranco, who've been going on for 10 fucking years and shit like that. It's like, Shane is like the example of you can have a controversial, really fucked up past, but as long as you own up to it and you're real about it and you're like, there's no fucking excuse about it, and you gain the self-awareness of, I get why people hate me. And he's moved on and he's atoning for his mistakes, and he seems to try to atone for it every fucking time. Any small controversy happens, but it's one of those things where he's done his time. He's admitted to his wrongdoings. And I always found it kind of interesting that he was the one doing this deep dive into Jake Paul. And you see throughout the whole series, he's connecting with Jake Paul. He didn't have the friendship with Jake Paul that he had with Tana Mosier, for example, on that whole series. But it was it literally starts with, I just got a text from Jake Paul, or I got a message from Jake Paul. I don't remember if it's a text or a message, like a DM or something like that. But it's I just got a message from Jake Paul. He wants me to do a series, or wants me to kind of do a thing about him. And then that kind of has how this whole thing unfolds. And I did find it interesting, kind of the flip-flopping back and forth throughout it. It's you go through the first 2 episodes, and you're like, man, fuck Jake Paul. He's a fucking piece of shit, probably a sociopath. Then you get to episode 3 and 4 when they're talking about the family and talking to Nick Crompton and all this stuff. And you kind of go man, okay, he was a kid that was raised by the worst people, who was competitive with one of the worst kind of people, who self-admits he has sociopathic tendencies, Logan Paul. But it's, I kind of was sitting there well, it doesn't excuse what he's done, but it really makes a lot more sense why he's done the things that he's done. And then you see the episode 6 where he's talking about, being a child of divorce, which, as someone who also was a child of divorce, that fucks with people, and that fucks with how you can raise somebody. And I lucked out in the sense, personal anecdote, I lucked out in the sense that when my dad and my birth mother divorced, my dad got remarried, and my stepmom literally became my mom. So I still had at least half the time until I decided to live with them full time before I moved out. I had some sort of stability, and it doesn't sound like Jake Paul ever had that. Neither Jake nor Logan. So I'm kind of okay, no, that makes sense. And I did kind of sympathize for the idea of, you're packing your bags every week, going back and forth. There's no consistency in how you're being raised. And I'm just that makes a lot of sense. But then you get to episode 7 and the discussion of the emotional and manipulation and the verbal abuse that Alyssa Violet suffered at his hand. And it's, it's one of those things where, people are like, well, how can you believe a victim without proof? But Shane brought out so many clips of the supposed abuse, and it really it rubbed me the wrong way. And it really was it really made me go, man, fuck Jake Paul. And that was kind of a tough pill to swallow, but at the same time was kind of important because they dove right on into something that was like at the center of a lot of this drama. For those of you who do not know, or tough shit if you'd never wanted to know, I'm telling you anyway, Alyssa Violet was a former romantic interest because they were never dating to Jake Paul. He used her in videos, etc., etc. According to Alyssa, she was kind of, she would, they would flirt. She had feelings for him, and he just didn't want anything to do with it. She's trying to get, it's just the whole thing. And I've been in that situation where, you're trying to get someone that you think you vibe well with. You're trying to, make it work, and it's not working. And like Jake is bringing girls in and fucking them in the house and stuff like that, and kind of making shit awkward. And then she acts out of emotion and fucks Jake Paul's brother, Logan Paul. And in probably one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard, after trying to tell Logan, please don't tell him, please don't reveal this is kind of like personal shit, straight up told her, I will never forget this, Logan straight up told her, I'm a fucking savage, I'm a maverick, this shit's gonna get out there. And man, that, if you didn't hate Logan Paul already, you fucking hate Logan Paul for that. But at the same time, just the way that she described and the video showed, just the way that he went in, like Jake Paul went in on Alyssa, that seemingly to some observers really made it look like that he was just taking out his anger and frustration on her. It was going to be really hard for me to give him the benefit of the doubt, specifically in that situation. And that was the big thing that I was looking for in the final episode. The final episode, as far as a production standard, has a lot of payoff. Shane Dawson does not hold back on a lot of what he's got to say. I quite literally at one point, because there's a weird transition, and my girlfriend made the comment about it. There's this weird transition after talking about all the heavy shit related to this whole Alyssa Violet situation, that he straight up is like, man, everyone in this situation is fucked up. And I'm like, that's how I feel. Like, holy shit, everyone here is fucked up beyond fucking belief, dude. And, that's kind of my takeaway as far as a lot of the people associated with it, his family, some of the people he held close, and it really kind of, especially coming out of episode 7, going into this final episode, kind of really made me like, okay, Jake really has to just really own up to some things. And my conflict is, it's just, is he going to be a better person? Is he going to take this advice? Is he going to rely on good people? I don't fucking know, man. And it's kind of really hard for me to process what the fuck he's actually going to do. There are some situations, like he admitted the whole getting on the news van and harassing the neighbors. He understood, while at some points maybe taking a little bit to get to that point, he understood that he fucked up. He looked like a fucking douchebag. And, just like to the outside observer, there's that whole deal. But then he kind of shoots himself in the foot on, Shane going in on the, manipulating children to buy his merch. And he's kind of like, when he straight up said, I think it's bullshit and it's just people saying shit. It's like, no, you got to look at this. You're able to look at this one situation removed from your opinion, but you can't look at this situation removed from it. And Shane even goes in on him about it. He's like, you may not be intentionally doing it, but it is happening and it looks really fucking bad. And I was kind of like, man, it definitely was this is a one step forward, like 2 steps back for him. And it became really hard when he finally addressed the whole Alyssa Violet situation. And in fact, my girlfriend was fucking pissed at Jake Paul. And honestly, I can't blame her, because I found myself getting increasingly frustrated because it literally took him, I think, almost 30 minutes to finally admit no one was innocent in this situation. And people like Shane were like, listen, you got to just say what really happened, how you feel, what you did wrong, because he felt he was still trying to, like, for example, defend his brother. It was really fucked up of his brother to sit there and parade that, he stole his younger brother's girlfriend all over social media. That's really, really fucked up. But Jake, he had this whole like self-importance thing. He's like, well, we were dating and then we weren't dating, but then we were dating, but then we weren't dating. And like I said, I've never watched a Jake Paul video. I've just seen it through proxy. People like Phil DeFranco talking about him, or like H3H3 talking about him, or like even channels like Salt talking about him, or all the other like reaction commentary channels talking about how fucked up he is. Even like I don't like PewDiePie in the fucking least, but I even watched his video on Jake Paul, and it's fucking like it's wild for me to believe, especially if it was an on again off again relationship, like especially if this truly happened during the off again part of the relationship. Like, he had no fucking reason to care. He had no fucking reason to know what she was doing. The friend that approached him had no fucking reason telling him. Logan Paul had no fucking reason to do that behind his brother's back, especially if with the way that it sounded, and I wish, this is one of the reasons why I got frustrated, is that Jake Paul needed to just open with, I was confused about my emotions and I didn't handle it the right way, which is what it, at the end of the whole thing, is what it sounded like. He was a dude that's like, maybe I do like her, maybe I don't like her, maybe I do want to date her, maybe I don't want to date her, and it's like he didn't know how to handle it, and he was a fucking asshole, and it's like, because of that, she acted out of emotion, which Alyssa Violet admitted. She's like, I acted out of emotion, and then I paid the fucking price. It's like Jake's fan base still harasses me, and I'm like, that's fucking insane. And it really was just one of those things where it's like, it took him way too long to get to the point, and it really kind of made me go, man, I don't know if you fully get it. And I do have to commend Shane for the way he handled some of these hard questions. I know he was a nervous fucking wreck going into that final interview, but I do have to give him credit. He dove into some really deep shit. He kind of straight up said, with the whole manipulating children thing, they're like, oh yeah, that's fucked up. The whole neighbors thing of like, yeah, you were a fucking menace to your neighbors. The whole Martinez twins thing is like, well, I mean, you got to kind of look at it through their eyes as well, and kind of, there were some fucked up things that you did as well as they did. The whole Alyssa Violet situation, he kind of straight up says that's when he has this whole like, everyone in this situation is fucked up. But it's like he had this whole thing of just like, I can't even comprehend this. It's like there was a lot of like, Shane was even digging. It's like, you need to tell, you need to be angry. You need to be upset. If you need to cry, you fucking cry. It's like they go into like this whole toxic masculinity and raising people with toxic masculinity of like, men don't cry, men don't show emotion. You got to be a badass, stuff like that. Basically how Greg Paul has raised his fucking children. And I'm actually ashamed that I share a same first name with that fucking degenerate piece of shit. So at the end of all this, what do I feel about Jake Paul? Do I feel that he has a fucking chance to redeem himself or anything like that? And honestly, time is going to tell, and I absolutely would love to do an addendum maybe a year from now about this, because while there are some things that, he went one step forward, two steps back on, like the Alyssa Violet stuff, the stuff talking about the child manipulation, stuff like that. And then I even remember watching his fight against Deji, and like, he's just sitting there plugging merch and shit. But then I look at the whole aspect of who he was raised by, the kind of brotherly competition he had with Logan, and kind of the fact that even in episode 3, Logan Paul straight up said, oh, I'm not a sociopath, but I have sociopathic tendencies. Which, in my mind, I'm like, so you're basically calling yourself a sociopath without calling yourself a fucking sociopath. It's like, you look at that whole dynamic, and there was one little bit that I did find interesting, which is why I feel like if he just listens to some of the shit that Shane said, don't work with family anymore, be on your own, find yourself, and all that kind of crazy shit, atone for what you've fucking done. It's like, the thing that did catch me, which is why I feel that, like, it's going to depend on how things go from here, is Jake Paul tells the story of before the Suicide Force video came out from Logan Paul. Like, one of the first things he said was like, "Wait, you're gonna post that?" And it's like he had no clear idea of what was going on, and he admitted he's like, "I've never watched the full video. I can't get myself to watch it." And it sounded like that there was a lot of discourse. You know, he sits there and said, "Yeah, I brought the family closer together," but you could tell he's uneasy about it. And like, you know, I felt like as the interview went on, and Shane was kind of like, "Listen, you need to like separate yourself from these guys. You need to separate yourself from this, from that, etc." You know, it's like he kind of just, you know, like, I don't know if he's genuine. I would like to hope that Jake Paul is genuine. And I don't want to wish the worst for people. I hope he has taken this long, you know, the 4-week journey of the release, but even before then, the long journey leading up to this. And then I feel possibly the start of the signs of self-awareness, but it's hard to tell. It's going to be very interesting where it goes from here. Do I think he's going to do a full turnaround? Maybe. You know, if someone like Shane Dawson, who thrived on absurdist offensive humor, was able to pull himself back and ground himself in reality and become self-aware to the extent that he did become self-aware, then, you know, I'm not saying anything against Shane, but he's proven that it can happen. And, you know, I hope that happens. I hope that, like, maybe 3 to 5 years from now, we see Jake Paul as this guy that grew, that knows how to run a business, guy who knows how to be an entrepreneur, a guy who knows how to run on social media. Because, you know, regardless of if you like the dude or not, guess what? He knows how to be an entrepreneur. He knows how to make fucking money. He knows how to land brand deals. He knows how to market to certain demographics. Whether the way he does it is you know, ethical, that's the other discussion. But there are ways that he can take like the ethical side of that and use that to market in a healthier way, you know, as a part of his growing and realizing stuff like that. In fact, he had a whole thing. Shane kind of says like, you need someone by your side, you know, telling you this is too far. This is not how you do it. This is over the top. And he kind of says, I wish you could do that. And I found it really interesting, kind of the foil between the two of them. You know, it's like Shane Dawson is the guy that had the comeback story, and Jake Paul is the one who can have the comeback story. And it's just going to be, you know, where does it go from here? I don't want to sit here and try to say, fuck you, Jake Paul, you're never going to change. But I also don't want to sit there and say, oh man, he's going to go on this amazing comeback and give him the benefit of the doubt, like too much of a benefit of the doubt. And I'm certain we're going to talk about this more later. At a later date. I'm certain we're going to talk about it at least a little bit on the podcast on Sunday and all that crazy shit. But it's like, I mean, it was a wild ride, to say the fucking least. And it's just one of those things where, you know, I initially had some issues, but those last 2 episodes specifically, there's a lot of meat there. There's a lot of shit to go through there. And as a piece of entertainment, it ended on a really wild note. I like the way it ended. I mean, the whole weirdness of like using like the emotional song at the end is kind of you know, some of the editing choices that Shane and his crew made was kind of weird, I'll readily admit, you know, especially going back to my opinion on episode 2. You guys have heard plenty about that, but you know, I don't want to not give Jake Paul the benefit of the doubt. You know, he may be a shitty person who's made a lot of fucking mistakes, but he's a smart entrepreneur. He knows how to run a business and how to do it the right way, and whether, you know, it's all a matter of, you know, I agree with what Shane had to say. Remove himself from the family, kind of just be your own person. Learn who you really are. Keep people like his current girlfriend, Erica, close to him, which it was crazy when they had the whole thing of bringing the therapist with them. They admitted to Erica this is what they were doing, and she was the first one. It's like, well, yeah, he needs a fucking therapist. And it's like, you know, Shane was like, I feel like he needs to just remove himself from this house, and just you two need to just be on your own. And she's like, yeah, I feel like that would be really healthy for him. And it's like, seeing that kind of dynamic, it's like, it's kind of sad that he has these people that, you know, now, like Shane Dawson and Erica and people that could be good influences. Like, he could have been the kid that came from a shitty home to be a great guy, which is part of my frustration with the series, because it was like, you sit there and, you get frustrated because you're like, a lot of people come from shitty situations. A lot of people are good people at heart. And it's like he surrounded himself with the wrong people for the first, 20 some odd years of his life. And it's like, I really hope that him surrounding himself with these people now that he's starting to surround himself with, and even reaching out to people like Shane Dawson, I hope he takes it to heart. I really hope he does. I would love for him to take that to heart. But we're just gonna have to see, man. Those are my opinions. This is my opinion corner. If you agree or disagree, let me know down below. I'm fairly certain there might be a couple new people watching this. If you want to hear my dumb, shitty opinions on other things, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. If you want to, hit the notification bell when we upload every Friday. But that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to my stupid words and all the dumb shit I have to say. So we will catch you guys next Friday. We're going to have a way more light-hearted video. The video we were going to do, that was going to be the format breaking thing. We're just going to discuss on the podcast on Sunday, and then probably kind of clip that part as well to kind of be spread out, because there's a lot to unpack with that. So anyway, until then, I've done enough shilling. I've done enough talking about, crazy people on the internet. So until then, we will catch you guys next Friday.